that wasn't me falling in back there, just so everybody knows. Hi everyone, my name is Prachi Modi. I'm the Program and Content Manager for Phenix Capital Group. I've had the lovely opportunity to meet a lot of you in person, face-to-face, have conversations as we were running around, all trying to look at the little Trill Impact baby wherever he is. But really thankful for everyone that joined for the last 2 days for all the incredible conversations that we have been having. Our last session is survival of the fittest. It's very aptly put, thanks to our Phenix Capital team that's made it this far. So shout out to them. This title is for them, but also has a purpose. But no, just really wanted to come here, say thank you, and talk about a very important moment. Okay. A lot of the conversations that I've been having, or a lot of the key takeaways that we've all been discussing, edge on the idea of now is the time to act. And why has all the work we have done so far not worked? In my hometown, in New York, I don't know if you guys have visited or if you've been, specifically Union Square, there's a clock. The clock prior to that was, I believe, the national debt crisis in the United States of America. And since September 2020, the clock has been changed to represent the climate. This number scares me a little bit, so please bear with me. 4 years, 111 days, and 3 hours left, until all the damage that we have done to the planet is irreparable. I'm going to let that sink in and marinate. But this is not what this talk is about. We don't want to make it daunting. This shouldn't be scary. I think with all the capital that's present in the room, I believe the number is 13 trillion, at least when we had everybody present. The capital that's in this room is 13 trillion. So I'm going to repeat the number once again. 4 years, 111 days, and 3 hours left. I want to get started by inviting my wonderful speaker, Elizabeth Clark, adorably known as Lizzie. She will be joining me today to discuss the ideas on what incremental actions do we need to do in order to make fundamental change. Elizabeth.
Brilliant, thank you. Hello, everybody. You've made it to the final session before the close of this event. I represent the University of Cambridge. I'm an academic. I wanted a podium. They said no, so you've got my notes in front of me as we speak. As Prachi said, as we move towards the close, the common thread that I've been hearing that leads into what we'll be talking about today is the following. We're not moving fast enough. We recognize the power of impact investing, but we need to take back much-needed ownership of the narrative around sustainability in the face of today's backlash and ever-changing geopolitical reality. So to bring this to life, I'm going to take you through the University of Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership's perspective on this, what hasn't worked, what must change, and our thoughts on how this needs to happen. Some of this thinking is public, some of it will actually be coming out in a paper being launched next week, so a sneak preview. But with this in mind, my objective for today is for you as the audience to leave feeling challenged by the narrative that we are putting forward, and in turn challenge us and our thinking. We're going to have spots for questions throughout the conversation. We're going to have a roaming mic. This is your chance after 2 days to bring your perspective forward into the room. Nobody likes talking. People are tired. But I challenge you to put your hand up and kind of invite perspectives in response to what I'm going to share today. So as Prachi said, I run the Investment Leaders Group at the University of Cambridge, where our approach is on priority areas for systemic transformation across people, nature, and climate. And we drive that transformation by working directly with key actors in business, financial institutions, entrepreneurs, researchers, policymakers, both to create change within the system and seeking to help change the system itself. What I'm here to talk to you about today forms the backbone of CISL's theory of change, encompassed by the phrase competitive sustainability. The idea that we must shift from a values sense of sustainability to a valued one.
Well, Lizzie, I do want to follow up with that, but before we get a bit more into what Cambridge has done on competitive sustainability, I kind of want to hear a little bit more from the audience. I'm going to make this as engaging as possible. I know a lot of information has been presented to you, but it's equally beneficial for us as speakers and moderators to also know what your thoughts are along the way. I'm going to pose the question out there. What does competitive sustainability mean to you? We don't need an exact definition, but when you hear the phrase, what do you think of?
Okay,
Come on, guys, last session.
show of hands. Can somebody raise a disc based on, actually, no, I saw a hand in the back of the room. Okay, but now that I have you, go for it. Stretched at the wrong time.
It was around competitive sustainability, what that means. In some ways, it makes me anxious because coming from a more traditional sort of asset management background, the thing that I loved about the sustainability world is it's so collaborative. And so as long as that competitiveness does not lead to a reduction in collaboration, then it's okay. But if it does lead to that, then I don't think that's a great outcome.
Got another one over here. Thank you.
I don't have any problem with competitive sustainability, and I'll give you an example of why. I come from the Anglican Church, and we have a pension fund in England that's now sitting at £10.4 billion, at least 30% of which historically is tied directly to the slave trade. Mm-hmm. We've now identified a £100 million carve-out to try to address transatlantic slavery. How many products do we have that are at pension fund grade, investment grade, that can fit in a £100 million tranche dealing with slavery? We don't have enough products. And unless we allow competitive sustainability, we're not going to develop the products. And that's why I'm so excited to be here, that there's a lot of desire to do this. And it's product design, I think, is what I'm taking away as a key priority.
Brilliant. I'm going to move us on now, but thank you very much. You've broken the ice. There's a bar set. People can participate. It is possible. Thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring to life the concept of competitive sustainability through a paper that CISL launched in September of last year titled Survival of the Fittest. This outlines why we think ESG in its current agenda hasn't worked, but then more critically, moving to the how we think things should change, which will be captured by the paper being released next week called Competing in the Age of Disruption. So the crux of survival of the fittest, I think, can be nicely encapsulated by an FT article that came out shortly after, titled ESG is Dead, Long Live ESG. And it argued that despite decades of corporate commitments, the hard truth remains, we're still headed in the wrong direction. Carbon emissions are rising, fossil fuel companies chase growth, and in 2024, temperatures exceeded 1.5 above pre-industrial levels for the first time. And I think the fact is, many of sustainability strategies today were built for a different time, when we believed in win-wins and voluntary leadership that could deliver the progress needed. That story, we say, has run out of road. Too many businesses are now stuck. They can't move faster than customers or investors are willing to reward, and they face real constraints. Markets that fail to price externalities, that favor short-term performance over long-term value creation, and subsidies that favor damaging incumbents. And the gap between pledges and delivery has triggered greenwashing claims and eroded trust. The CEO of Nippon Life said at Tokyo's PRI in 2023, far more eloquently than I'm going to say now, "Those doing fluff helped trigger this backlash. Those doing good work, unfortunately, must weather the storm." And so we say the ESG agenda hasn't delivered, and in its current form, it never will.
That's a bold statement. There's a lot to unpack here, especially due to the current administration and the geopolitical environment that we are in right now. But just as a show of hands to once again bring in everybody in, who agrees or disagrees with what she said? Just you can raise agree.
If you agree, raise your
Agree.
Agree. Okay, can I get a disagree? Okay.
Here.
Should we keep going?
Yeah, let's give you.
Brilliant. So now what? Okay, it hasn't worked. What does that mean? So what I'm going to share now is our view on what is needed from business and finance. Simply put, we need to compete aggressively on sustainability performance. However, if market structures continue to prioritize short-term performance at the expense of long-term value, we'll continue to fail to see the accelerated shift needed at scale. Not aligning to net zero isn't a risk if the economic reality isn't aligned to net zero. And while innovation and marketing have a role to play, many businesses can't future-proof themselves within broken markets. This will leave them stuck in a territory of incremental win-wins or bearing the competitive disadvantage of early action. The agenda of competitive sustainability, therefore, is not just one of shifting mindsets. Markets must be redesigned. And so our conclusion is that it is in businesses' own interest to drive market-wide change, including through advocacy, so that markets reward sustainability performance. But for this to happen, the biggest challenge facing almost everybody in this room is how to embrace the transition and make it work for you, not be done to you, and how to accelerate it fast enough, as Prachi highlighted, in an increasingly narrow window of action to protect your markets and the environment upon which you depend. We are competing now in an age of transformation. This is actually really nicely echoed by the theme of this conference, the new DNA of impact investments. The global economy is undergoing a fundamental shift, with smarter, cleaner, fairer systems of value creation already reshaping the competitive landscape. The next generation of market leaders will be defined by their strength in clean technologies, AI-optimized efficiency, sustainable food systems, circular business models. And I've got a couple of examples to back this up. Tesla's biggest threat, arguably, isn't Elon Musk or tariffs. It's Chinese EV makers like BYD outcompeting on performance and cost. While headlines dwell on US political backlash, Asia is doubling down on resource productivity, clean energy, and bio-based innovation. We're seeing asset owners taking on a greater vocal role. In February, UK pension fund, the People's Pension, pulled 28 out of 33 billion pounds from State Street over their ESG retreat, a clear signal they will not accept a lower ambition around fiduciary duty. And, based in the UK's 7th carbon budget, released in February, the net cost of the UK transition is actually 73% lower than previously thought in its 6th carbon budget advice, published in 2020. So with this lens, the risk to finance and business is actually twofold: systemic instability if the transition stalls, and competitive displacement if it accelerates faster than you do. So the critical question is this: how do we keep delivering in the short term while positioning for long-term success in a fast-changing world?
So, Lizzie, this paper came out in September of 2024. So, hey, that's when I started at Phenix. Shout out. But a lot has changed just with my time at Phenix, but since the paper has come out, because of the volatile nature of our world, how has this fed into your thinking? How do you think about this right now at this moment?
So I think it's safe to say that right now we're seeing a disruption of international order. And I don't know if any of you have listened to geopolitical strategist Tina Fordham, but she's coined a phrase that we are in a new geopolitical risk supercycle. In her mind, it's not ESG, it's ESGG, environmental, social governance, and geopolitics. But I think out of everything that's happening right now, the thing that I want to highlight that is arguably the most important, because everybody in the room is in impact investing, is doing the right things, we recognize the risk and return in kind of creating sustainable impact. The actually more challenging thing right now is voices opposing change have been smarter in shaping the narrative, framing action as anti-growth, elite, and unaccountable. They speak to pride and aspiration, and we've responded with data and acronyms, and we've lost the emotional connection with the public. So now more than ever, does sustainability need a new narrative that resonates in the current reality, whether we like it or not?
Yeah. No, this is really helpful. I think the duality of our conversations once again leads into what's not worked and how can we change it now. Along with who are the key players, I think also which generation needs to tap in and who should we be having these conversations with that are just beyond the boomers. We need more of a younger voice, a younger audience to also tap into this community and to tap into what they can do. I know the first part of the paper is on what went wrong, and then the second part that's coming out on April 7th, so on Monday, that's on how can we fix it, or how can we solve this problem. But before I let you talk about the how, I kind of want to hear from the audience once again. Is there something that you've seen that's really, really not worked? Like, what do you think went wrong? Sorry? Wait. No.
Got a microphone.
Mohit, up
Have it
here.
down here, please. Thank you. Consequence of muttering when we can see you.
Front table. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, in what sense wrong? I didn't understand.
Yeah, I think in the sense of what hasn't been working. I feel a lot of us we've been in the impact and investing space for some time now. I don't think, I mean, of course there's a diverse audience, there's new key players here as well, but what in the industry has not gone the way that it should have. Or you could also tap into some of the conversations that you've heard over the last 2 days and maybe go a bit more into like maybe something that they said that didn't necessarily work from your organization's point of view. Oh,
We've got some.
I got a mic too,
Lots
so
of
I'm
hands.
going to use it.
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves. You know, yeah, sure, ESG is difficult, and it's a mission impossible. It was never going to be a success. We're up against human nature. You know, we're up against us being investors or voters or whatever we are, favoring the short term. Now, countering that, you know, there's a whole industry, there's a whole governance apparatus around us that should do its job and isn't. But it's not a particular approach that's failing. It's much deeper, much more profound than that. And I think a short-term fix falls almost in that same trap. You know, there is no easy fix. It's us. It's not ESG, it's us. Fix that.
Yeah. Let's go, Pete.
Here.
I think outside of impact, one of the more practical things, and I completely echo what's just been said, but one of the practical things that we've seen is this idea of exclusions. And I think probably everyone can relate to what has happened where institutionally we've been pushed by activists to set up exclusions in our portfolios, which has its place for sure. But what we've ended up doing is stepping away from the discussions and the engagement that's needed to happen with the companies that have the most impact and the most ability to transition.
Yeah. No, this is really helpful. Okay.
For me, the answer of where we got it wrong is seen in exactly how the election rolled out for Donald Trump. And if you look at the issues brought up in that populist movement, you see exactly the same issues in every populist movement. And they're exactly the issues we haven't dealt with ESG. It's the S. It's the missing S. It's the fact that what we're doing has not dealt with homelessness on streets. It's not dealt with drug addiction. It's not dealt with problems and inequalities from migration. And those are all the things that Trump won on. So I think it's a reminder to us. We've all been saying there's a missing S, and we're paying for it now. But there's time. There's time to catch up. But to me, just look at what he won the election on, what we're investing in and what we're not investing in, and I think we have the answer.
Yeah, and I do believe like this has been going on since the Carter era, right? There's been constant evidence of when governments have consistently failed us when it just comes to environmental plus social crisis as well. These are really good points. Pete, thank you once again. I think the terms can come and go. ESG could be in one day, out the next day, but it's really us as individualists, but also as a collective, where we've missed something clearly. Lizzie, I hand it back to you also to either take some comments or tell us how, which is the second part of the survival of the fittest paper.
I think, reflecting on what Pete said as well, the thing I want to level set before we move into the next piece is there is no silver bullet. I think to some degree we can also misconstrue, like, what have we got wrong? These past 2 days have shown us of all the ways we've also gotten things right. And there are lots of opportunities. But where we're at right now is an inflection point. There is backlash that is forcing us to critically reassess our strategies, to reframe them, to reshape them. And that is not a bad thing, because it allows us to now capitalize on a sense of urgency. So I definitely do want to make sure that this is not a not hopeful narrative. It's a how can we be best equipped now to be moving forward. And so the thinking that CISL has been doing since Survival of the Fittest came out, which landed interestingly in the market, I'm not going to lie, is what is the playbook then for institutions moving forward? And again, there is no right or wrong answer, and many of you in the room will probably leave going, okay, what does this mean in practicality? And that's where I'm very much keen and open to work with one of you or one another to figure that out. What's coming up is what we think needs to be true to compete in the age of disruption. And we've boiled it down to roughly 6 points, which I'll go through in detail in a second. The first is a mindset shift. Moving, like I said before, from values, compliance, and incrementalism to value, competition, and transformation. Many businesses and institutions still frame sustainability as doing the right thing. And it is. But this is not how they approach other areas of value creation. Industrial revolutions are not about responsibility or compliance. They're about competition and viable pathways for action. So once we have the mindset shift, what we're saying is next is we need to escape the ESG trap. To drive market-wide change, we need to stop what isn't working. Defensive, reputation, or compliance-driven approaches, many which are distractions that fail to drive real change. And instead, businesses should redirect energy, management time, and investment towards getting businesses itself ready for disruptive market shifts while reshaping the policy and market frameworks that determine success. And going back to something that was said at the beginning, collaboration is absolutely needed. But I think one thing that we need to be wary of, and something that we're all very guilty of, is the echo chamber. And not only that, talking shop. We should be backing commitments, initiatives, and coalitions with a clear path forward to reshaping the economic and regulatory conditions that we're a part of. Number 3, prepare for transformation and competition. Market transition demands new capabilities across analysis, modeling, policy influence, and leadership focused on long-term value creation. And the latter, in particular, requires full board and executive ownership, with alignment across governance, risk, strategy, investor relations. And businesses should be applying the same rigor to sustainability investments as they do to strategic decisions, recognizing not only costs, but upside potential and the risks of inaction. And to help contextualize the risk of inaction, recent work done by Boston Consulting Group and the University of Cambridge, Judge Business School, found that the cost of inaction on climate change mitigation and adaptation is equivalent to 11 to 27% of cumulative GDP alone. 4, innovate to create and protect value. Future competitiveness will be defined by early investment in transformative technologies and business models that disrupt rather than defend the status quo. Market transformation will often require coordinated, pre-competitive action across businesses and their value chains, working alongside startups, investors, regulators to reimagine systems for the future and accelerate shared innovation and transformative pathways to achieve them. Focus on tipping points, industries, technologies, clusters of innovation on the brink of transition. It was clusters of tech processors, touchscreen, that led to the smartphone, and batteries, software, charging infrastructure that led to EVs. 5, change the rules of the game. No, this is often the newest and most challenging for everyone in the room. But we cannot secure our future by optimizing within a broken system. We need to change the system. This means working to advocate the dismantling of market and policy barriers that constrain the competitiveness of cleaner, greener, fairer solutions and instead create incentives for change. So campaigns for market change should focus on what is most material, so which policies will have the biggest market impact, the potential for scale, where interventions can create tipping points, and feasibility, where momentum or political opportunity exists. We recognize that success here requires strategic, politically literate engagement, framing policy action as a driver of resilience, building confidence that change is possible, signaling a readiness to invest, confronting opposition head-on, and deploying every tool of influence to accelerate policy change in our interests. And on that final note, 6, build that momentum for change. For over a decade, a small group of progressive multinationals and high-profile CEOs have led on private sector sustainability, assuming that their leadership would trigger market-wide tipping point. But it's now evident that this strategy has no realistic prospect of delivering the scale of change needed at the pace of change needed. So instead, focus must shift to mobilizing a broader base, moving the middle, and I would argue we are the middle, to build the critical mass of support required for systemic market transformation. Companies should use their collective power to reform or abandon obstructive industry groups and ensure that political alignment aligns with long-term value creation and system transformation. Winning the public debate on this is going to be essential. This means going above corporate marketing and PR to shape compelling, relatable narratives that frame sustainability as a driver of prosperity, security, and national success. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 years, 111 days, and however many hours, but I know that time isn't on our side. However, over the last 2 days, from what I've heard from all the panels and from what I've seen from everybody in this room, there is a desire and a willingness to lean in to try and make this possible. All I'm asking for now is that we think about it differently, and we talk about it differently, and that we take back ownership of the sustainability narrative.
I mean, truly, there's a lot to unpack here with the 6 points that the playbook mentions. For the sake of time, I have a little clock that's ticking here. Not the climate clock, but this clock. I would love to tap it to the audience once again to see, were there any points that resonated out of the 6 points that we heard from Lizzie? Was there one, did we miss anything? Was there something that should be included? Anyone? No? Do we have any questions? No. Thank you all so much once again, and I'll repeat.
We've got one question.
We do. Okay, nice. Plot twist.
Yeah, I'll add a thought. Thanks for sharing these 6 points. The thought I wanted to add is that sometimes it helps to be more specific on the we. Right? We should be more this, we should do more that, we should do less this, more that. Who do you mean by we? Because if you mean 6 billion people, it's going to, or 8 or whatever, or if you mean 50 people in the room, who is the we that you are targeting, or that we should be targeting? And again, who is the we?
Thank you. Yeah? Did you have a question? Oh, we're just waving. Nice. The paper does come out next week, so would absolutely love to. I mean, I have a lot of questions for Lizzie, and we'll be discussing outside. Thank you all so much for joining. I want to say the time once again.